Good day, my good IBUSA patrons. I am Dr. Nwankwo Anthony Ukoboshimwezigwe, the Odogwu of IBUSA, and the President International Coalition Against Christian Genocide in Nigeria, ACAGN. I am the Odogwu of IBUSA by right of IBUSA customs and tradition. I am the Odogwu of IBUSA by right of IBUSA native law and custom. I am the Odogwu of IBUSA by right of Midwest State Government's declaration on the mode of selection, appointment, and conferment of Odogwu IBUSA title, which is applicable to the present Delta State. And I am the Odogwu of IBUSA by the provisions of Delta State Traditional Rulers Council and Chiefs Edict of 1998 as amended. This is the sixth part of my narratives with respect to the forgery of the government white paper that is to say the present OBUZOR system, OBUZOR relationship system in IBUSA, on which will be Professor Chelon Onwoboshina sits at OBUZOR of IBUSA. And I still maintain that that document is forged, remain forged, and will ever remain forged. There have been a lot of people calling me, telling me, how do we do it, how do we do it? Even to the extent of telling my sister, who is in the United States of America, telling her to pressure me to drop, because I asked her, how do I drop the case? Do I now come out and tell IBUSA people that what I declared as forgery, what I discovered as forgery, what I pronounced as forgery, in which I named the Zabu as culprit, is no longer forgery? Is that what they want me to do? Do they want me to now say that the roguish conferment of Odogwu title of Mr. Charles Okonkwo by Obi-Chelon Onwoboshi, which is against IBUSA native law and customs, which is against IBUSA tradition, customs and tradition, which is against the provisions of government declaration on the appointment, selection, and conferment of Odogwu title, which is against Delta State Traditional Rulers Council and Chiefs Edict of 1998 as amended. They want me to come and say that all these things are now that my allegations were false. I don't understand the way people act. I've raised issues, I've called names. And I want those people I called them to come and refute me. And I want any other person in IBUSA to come and refute me. I'm not saying I'm Odogwu of IBUSA. If you think I am not the Odogwu of IBUSA, come and respond to me. If you think that my allegation, is not even allegation, my statement, pointed statement, my affirmation, without the least equivocation, that the white paper, Delta State government white paper that created OBUZOR was forged, then come and challenge me. So why should people going around telling the other time it was my friend in the US they called? And so you don't do that. Come out, let Augustine Izabo speak, let Mr. Chalinwa Research speak, let OBUZOR speak. I mean, will be Professor Chelon Onwoboshi. Let them speak. This time, in continuation of that allegation of forgery, I am going to look at the historical aspect, which has been delayed due to the matters that I rose from my previous presentations. But as it stands presently, I stand, and I still stand, I will continue to stand on my affirmation that I am currently legally installed, legally conferred Odogwu of IBUSA. Stand to state clearly that Mr. Charles Okonkwo is not Odogwu of IBUSA. No matter how far he parades himself around, he is not the Odogwu of IBUSA. I, Dr. Nwankwo Anthony Ukoboshimwezigwe, is the authentic Odogwu of IBUSA in law and in tradition. I still want to maintain that that white paper was forged under the collusion of Chief Austin Izabo, Chief Dr. Austin Izabo. And I want Austin Izabo to come and refute my allegation because his name is at stake. He's an important man in data. He's an important man in IBUSA. He holds the title of Ide of IBUSA. So when serious allegation is leveled against him, he should come out and counter it because his name is at stake. Let him come and talk to the people that what I, Odogwu of IBUSA, Dr. Nwankwo Anthony Nwezigwe, is speaking is wrong, is falsehood, is clear accusation. Let him come and speak out. So I still maintain that since that white paper is forgery, it's a forgery, the product of that particular forgery, which is the OBUZOR institution, is a nullity. And the reaper of that institution, who is Obi Professor Nwoboshe, is a nullity. And then whatever action the OBUZOR has taken, Obi Professor Nwoboshe has taken in respect of that position he occupies, is a nullity. Like the clandestine and fake conferment of Odogwu title of Mr. Charles Okonkwo. I've maintained it. And I've maintained equally that Mr. Austin Izabo embezzled 19 million naira earmarked for compensation. EMS for compensation for the acquisition of the present Ibrahim Kefa's Park. For the original owners, my grandmother's village, Umosowa, and the Agetua family. I maintain that. Because time will come, if this government lacks the political will or out of sentiment or out of lobby or whatever, fails to act on that aspect, time will come, is going to face what? Is going to face EFCC or any other crime agent in Nigeria. I'm also saying that the same Delta State government will look into the issue of the forged white paper. If they don't do it, another government will do it. Forgery does not expire. It is not a civil matter. It does not expire. There is no status bar. There's no status limitation. It does not expire. So if they fail to do it, but let Obi Professor let him know that he is illegally installed. That he is in law. He is by law. He is in terms of all kinds of moral judgment and measurement. That he is illegal. He is an illegal entity. That his position as the OBUZOR of IBUSA is an illegal entity. It is not something bribery. It is not wanting something corruption. It is not wanting diplomacy. It's not wanting politics can cover up. But this is an established fact. So these are my positions, and I stand by it. And I still maintain that others have said it earlier that ordinarily, Mr. Charles Okonkwo shouldn't have been conferred Odogwu that ordinarily remove every other thing. In tradition, in IBUSA native law and custom, his village, Obu, in fact, let me start from the white, from the declaration. The declaration clearly states that anybody suspected to have committed abomination should not take the title of Odogwu. It's in black and white. And in open quarters, stealing is abomination. That is why even when you steal a pin or 1 kobo, you are certified as having committed abomination. And for that reason, you will not be accorded full burial rights under Omeze quarters tradition, under Ezuku tradition, of which Mr. Charlie Okonkwo and Obi Professor Nwoboshe belong, of which they belong. That is their standing tradition. Stealing is an abomination. And we also know in respect of Ezuku quarters, that for that reason, 2 candidates or so were disqualified from Odogwu title. Not for any other reason, but for embezzling their company's money. Not outside robbery, but they record that they embezzled their outside money. their companies outside money, they were disqualified from taking the Odogu title. And that is the reason the Odogu title has to be reserved for me. We are in Omeze that there have been people who even, so there are people who have been targeted as having stolen now, simply because a stray cow ran into the bush and was destroying their crop without anybody knowing the owner, destroying their crop and posing even danger to farmers, both men and women, and they slaughtered it. And the village turned out to mark it as stealing. And we're not talking about Mr. Charles Okonkwo, who is a no 419, Charles Okonkwo has never done any job in his life except fraudster, internet fraudster, 419, advanced fraudster. Everything he acquired came from that. His house, his money, his guy named Charlie Coupe, which arose from his flat boot coupe, Mercedes coupe then he bought at the height of 419 in IBUSA then. That was how he got his nickname, Charlie Coupe. So let Omeze people now tell IBUSA that 419, somebody who defrauded somebody and made money, it's not a thief. It's not robbery. It's not a thief. It's not a question. We need not identify the culprit, but the onus is on that person to prove how he made this money. Because in olden days in IBUSA, if you make too much money or you come home with car without any identifiable job, your parents will call you aside and say, "My son, how did you make this money?" It's no longer so these days. But that has been IBUSA tradition. It's not a question of making money. The IBUSA people will try to find out the source of that your money. So if Omeze people are telling me that 419 is not crime, later it's not theft, let them tell you what. So for that reason, Charles Okonkwo cannot be the Odogu of IBUSA. Ordinarily, under IBUSA native law and custom, it concerns him as a person. Secondly, Umuwa, his quarters, are also barred from taking Odogu IBUSA title. And I've mentioned 5 kindreds in Otodogu, 3 in Omeze, 2 in Ezuku. Number 1 is in Ezuku, Idumikwele, barred from Odogu title. Number 2, Umobi Ofugo, in Ezuku quarters, apart from taking Odogu title. Umuwa in Omeze, number 1 in Omeze. Umochia in Omeze, number 2. And Umwena in Omeze. These established traditions. And I've stated earlier that the reason why Onoma, the descendants of the first son of Umeje Onoma, left, who were part of Idumikwe, who were part of Ezuku quarters, were part of Idumikwe, why they left and rejoined Omeze was because of this issue of Odogu. Because they wanted to take Odogu title. And Ezuku told them, you are part of Idumikwele. You are not entitled to take Odogu title. They said they are not part of Idumikwele, that they were Onoma children. Ezuku now told them, okay, leave Ezuku and join Omeze. That was why that was in 1904. And that is why they call them Obuofu today. You see them living between Umuanola, Oponta, Bishop Moezapo's village, Umuneze, and Umudiabo, Umumbeku. You see them living there. That small space. That was in 1904. That was when they came back over this Odogu title. And in fact, part of their descendants are still living among Idumikule. The Esedebe family, where Banashi Okeze, OBUZOR so-called Papando, came from, where his mother came from. And in fact, that family also produced past Ikwele, Chukwumanya Esedebe, it was Ikwele of IBUSA, from that woman of my family. In Idumikule. So that's still there in Idumikule. In fact, the land where Etufumwa, from Idogu today in Omeze, but where he built his house, his family house, was part of where Umonoma, where living, we call him Umonoma land. He sold it. Esedebe sold it because, according to him, he belonged to Umonoma kindred. And so he cannot. And I've said it earlier that it is because Umuwa, the producers and makers of yam medicine, you can't be making yam medicine and you are going to war. It does not rhyme. They do not agree under IBUSA customs and even under Igbo cosmology. Yam medicine makers are not terms of warrior, are not taken as warrior because it is forbidden for them to soil their hand. with human blood. That's been the tradition under Igbo cosmology. So it is standard that ordinarily Mr. Charlie Okonkwo shouldn't have been Odogwu of Ibuzo, and established the fact that it was as a result of that Okpanam and Ibuzo celebrate New Year festival together. With Okpanam taking lead in the morning, who brought the yam medicine from Okpanam will perform their own New Year festival by afternoon, 12 o'clock, and the rest Ibuzo will go ahead and perform from 4 o'clock upwards. That has been the tradition. So in that respect, no matter whatever, somebody should not tell me I've been part of Otudu Okpa in Ibuzo because I stand by the right of Ibuzo Kosonta tradition, and I will not support any idea, any attempt to malign and destroy that same Ibuzo revered customs and traditions of Ibuzo, which have stood and fought for quite a long time. So nobody should come and tell me, forget this. Forget what? If this government doesn't do it, another government will do it. After Obama, Biden of Democratic Republic, they've been giving Iran money, bribing them over even when Iran was, have been murdering Americans. And Trump came and said, no, it's not going to be so. He's going to take its own action. He took it. In Venezuela, Cuba is there. Now it is Iran. We're hoping that he will come back to Nigeria. Because Nigeria as a nation cannot continue the way we are today. We'll come to that in another session. And in fact, those who think they can distract my attention over my battle against Christian genocide in Nigeria by introducing this extraneous tribal issue of Odogwu Ibuzo, they have failed. Because I can fight from multiple fronts. Those who have been my godfathers, they know about it. So today, I am going to look at the historical aspect of that forgery of the white paper, in which that white paper, through Chief Austin Isebo, said that Omeze quarters is senior to Ezuku quarters. And today, I'm going to present 27 reasons why Ezuku quarters is not only senior to Omeze, but is the oldest, most senior quarters in Ibuzo, and whose descendants also of Ishita founded Ibuzo before the arrival of Umeje and other later immigrants in Ibuzo. And I'm drawing this, I'm countering this my narrative from paragraph 6 of the white paper, which states inter alia, and let me just quote it for clarity purposes. He said, and I quote, the commission prepared a draft declaration intended to regulate the appointment and succession to the title of OBUZOR of Ibuzo at pages 66 to 70 of the main report. The draft declaration prepared by the commission is reproduced here under column 1. There are 3 ruling houses, Otu, in parentheses, in the following order of seniority in Ibuzo clan, known as 1. Otu Odogwu ruling house, 2. Otu Wolo ruling house, 3. Otu Yase ruling house. The villages, now I'm going to concern with, let me just face Otu Odogwu, because I'm not concerned with Otu Wolo and Otu Yase. I'm concerned with Otu Odogwu, this time. So I'm going to restrict myself to Otu Odogwu. The villages, Obes, in parentheses, which make up the groupings outlined above in the order of seniority are as follows. In Otu Odogwu, Omeze, 1, Ezuku 2, Ezuku Achala. In this case, it are defined Omeze as the senior quarter to Ezuku in Otu, which is false, unfounded, and a clear fabrication, and also fabrication based on forgery, based on outright forgery by Mr. Chief Austin Isebo. And let me state it clear that historically, ritually, politically, and socially, Ezuku quarters has the unquestionable attributes of the founding and oldest quarters in Ibuzo. And here, I'm going to establish it with 27 facts. 27 facts. If there's also the need, I can even make it up. But let me just stop at 27 facts. Why Ezuku is the oldest, not just older, not not just senior to Umeze, but the oldest quarters in Ezukwu in the whole IBUSA, because the rights, the prerogatives, and the powers in terms of our customs and tradition, Ezukwu people possess today. No other quarter in IBUSA possesses it. So I'm going to start. Let me start. Let me start serious thing. One, let me just make it clear that more than half of what is made up of Omeze quarters, more than half, close to 3/4, are lands customary belonging to Ezukwu. So Omeze people are living as customary tenants. Most of Omeze people are customary tenants on Ezukwu ancestral lands. And let me tell you that traditionally, Ezukwu has direct boundary with Umuadafe, not with Omeze. When you're not talking about the northern flank, you're talking about the northern flank. I'm not going to talk about Oboli, and so on and so forth, because Oboli know that from Obi, the Efos here, all those their homes, St. Monica, they all belong to Ezukwu. I'm not going to Oboli because I have no case with Oboli this time. And Oboli people are not contesting with Ezukwu people, because I have no basis to contest for seniority. That should lie between Otuwola. But right away, I'm talking about Otodo. The traditional boundary of Ezukwu with Omeze and Umuadafe is the Kefas Way, Kefas Park. That Kefas Park runs down straight at Okwale's house, where it joins the Asheke Omeze Road. Asheke Omeze Road. Then run straight to Ashanta. Then enter Umuneze. Umuneze Road down to Iyoji River. These are traditional lands that belong to Ezukwu people. And let me give you instances. For example, the former Diop of IBUSA, we told his children that Ezukwu people gave him the land. He built his Jehovah Witness Hall. I'm talking about Onowu Mowete Mengwa Mowete. He told his children, and he continued to say it even in my presence. The land in which Nkaka's massive building stands today was given to him by Ezukwu quarter. Omeze people refused. Umumbeku people refused to give him land to build, because out of jealousy, because he was the most successful then in terms of education and money, and they were jealous of him. But because his mother came from Ezukwu quarters, my village in Umudiabo in particular, Ezukwu people told him, go and build that, go and erect that building there. It is our land. And he did. Ezukwu gave Nkaka the right. That IBUSA you have now seen belongs to Ezukwu quarters. Nkata, and I come to that. Umocha people who are propitiating it today, we tell you why they are propitiating it, where they are propitiating an IBUSA there. That the land belongs to Ezukwu quarters. Okay, let us even go to Umocha further. Umocha people, you go to ask Ohadike family, ask Emefia family, and other Umocha, they will tell you that the land belongs to Ezukwu people. So you cannot stay part of your, you cannot contest your landlord. You cannot contest seniority with your landlord when much of your people are staying on his land, on his customary land. So how is it that Omeze can now come and clear seniority? We are moving. That's number one. Number two. Well, I've said it. Let me refer it. Yeah, number two again, which was part of that number, which I mentioned in passing in number one. That Umocha people, Mengwa, also affirmed, they affirmed that the land in which they are living belongs to Ezukwu people. And then Kaka also, we're not talking the whole Obodapo, the whole Mpoji, Ezukwu land, we gave it to them. Umwe them knew how they came up. The Ashanta you are seeing there belongs to Ezukwu quarters. Ashanta. That is why when we are doing our burial, our second burial, whatever, morning run, we move direct from Ezukwu to Ashanta. The main market that belongs to Omeze people is Asho Dalenwe, Umwe them, Asha Odalenwe. where Ibuzo performed the Mpalo wrestling contest. That is traditional market of Umeze people. Ashanti belongs to Ezuku land. Ashanti belongs to Ezuku land. That is tradition. So that is so all these people who are talking in Nkata will now have evidence that Mengwa Umucha people now know that the land belongs to Ezuku people. Nkaka family, their grandfather must have told their father, and the father must have told them too, that that land in which they built the house was given to them by Ezuku quarters. Now, 3, Umocha, which is also, I've mentioned in pattern, Umocha also affirm that that land in which they are living, as I stated earlier, they stated on that land in which they are living belongs to Ezuku quarters. LA school belongs to Isunambo, belongs to Ezuku for it is an Ugule land owned by Ezuku people. That was actually where Ezuku people quartered their slaves, an Ugule, during the pre-colonial period. Okuliapiti gave it to Awolowo's regional government in 1950 for part of his program of free education at all levels. That was where, and now that was how it became LA school. And part of our electoral, part of our electoral, Ezuku electoral, polling booth was in that LA school. Until Zabo, using his power, clandestinely removed it and consecrated it and put it as part of Omeze, part of Ward 8. Because he felt that Ezuku had nobody to challenge him. Ezuku had no power to challenge him. So Ezuku belongs to Ezuku people. At the right time, we make sure that the right thing is done. We're now talking about 4. As noted earlier, that triangle Nkata belongs to Ezuku, and Ibuzo belongs to Ezuku. And people will go and ask, as I will explain later, why Umochia, which is the youngest, who are the descendants of the youngest son of Ekwensu, is not propitiating an Ibuzo, when it is indeed the right of the Okpala to do so. And and Ibuzo people will ask, if Umeje founded Ibuzo, why didn't Anyoshi become Ibuzo and Ibuzo? We'll come to that later. Now, 5. This is where we now come. Number 5. Ibuzo, that Ibuzo you are saying, which is still traditionally customary on Ezuku land, was once located in Ezuku. It was once located in Ezuku, and we know that under Ibuzo, under Igbo customs and tradition, including Edo and our people, Ogirisi, or what we call now Ebo, which in botanical language, in botanical terms, known as Nubodia leaves. Ebo is a symbol of Ane. The children of Umeje, out of jealousy, out of the increasing population, went and cut it from Ezuku. I said they were taking their independence. They are now independent of Ishite family, Ezuku family, that they want to have their own Ane. That Umeje should have his own Ane. They now went and put it there at Anyoshi. And when they mounted it at Anyoshi, they started dying, and there was hunger. And that death led the children of the first descendants of this first son of Umeje, Umonma, to now run to Ezuku for protection. And they became part of Idumi Kwele until 1904. The children of Osheuku, the second son of Umeje, now fled. Why? Uwagu fled to Ezebog. That's why I have Umuwagu to the Ubogu. Then Agidoni here fled to Ezemesa, which is correct present Umwe, and it was formerly part of Umweka until 1940s, when out of the operation by Ubi Okonjimpi through colonial period, colonial era, they decided to secede. That they were no longer part of Umweka. Umweka became an independent village, and that was how Ibuzo became Eboili, and no longer Eboitonani. So people trying to add Oboli as no. Ibuzo Oboli remain part of IBUSA right from time, because IBUSA itself is of multi-origin. It's also of multi-ethnic origin, even though the Igbo elements tend to occupy, being the original settlers, now took over the identity of the town. But that was the reason why they now moved in. And when they started dying, when they now moved out, and there was, they were dying and there was hunger. Now they left only the children, or the third and last son. Okay, the third and last son of Oshenta, Umeje's third son. Umeje had two sons, two children, 3 kids. As we said, Onoma, Osheku, and Oshenta. And the families of Oshenta are made up of Ezebogo, Ezemesa, and Ekwenswazu. So the children of Ekwenswazu, the last of Oshenta, now remained. It is Oshenta that had Ozoma Mbeku, Alamuzo, and Ochia. They remained. So how can the descendants of the last son of the last son of Umeje now claim to be, to be senior to Ezuku quarters? Indeed, that Otodogu, the real people who are supposed to be part of Otodogu with Ezuku are Obogu, Umuwago, and Umwehe. These are the rightful people to be part of Otodogu, not people who now constitute Umeze, which are Umeze quarters, which are people of diverse origins, which we cannot go in at present. So Ekwensu descendants cannot claim to be senior to Ezuku people. Now, that is why we are now saying that in this respect, they cannot. Ekwensu cannot say they are senior to Ezuku quarters. Because even in IBUSA, ordinarily, they cannot be senior. They are the least. They are senior because they are part of Otodogu. And it is Ezuku seniority that defines Otodogu as senior in IBUSA. Sorry. The senior quarters in IBUSA. And we'll come to that. 6. It was under that circumstance, we're not going to the 6th level, it was under that circumstance of hunger and mass migration and deaths, high mortality of the children of Umeje for taking that and IBUSA, that they decided to invite a native doctor called Owai from Isuaniocha, where Owai migrated from. Is still there in Isuaniocha, in Awka North local government area of Anambra State. Isuaniocha people will go and show you where Owai migrated from. Now, Owai came a native doctor and told Umeje children that the first thing you have to do is to return the Ane, uproot the New Border levies, the Ebo 3 you mounted, you took from Ezuku, take it back to Ezuku. Then stop dying. Then for hunger, he will now make yam medicine so that your crops can grow. Umeje children, out of shame, what would they do? Decided to mount it at that Nkata, saying that it is Nkata belongs to Ezuku quarters, that any land that belongs to Ezuku quarters, if they mount it there, it serves the same purpose. And that was why they mounted it at that place, IBUSA. And for that reason, Ezuku people refused to propitiate it. That IBUSA, asking that unless you bring it back to where you took it, we will not propitiate it. And when the crisis continued, they were having problems. They now begged Ezuku, what do you want us to do now? Ezuku said, oh no, okay, that they are delegating that function to Ochia on their behalf. Ochia, who was that? Ochia descendants. Ochia. Remember, Ochia was the last son of Ekwensu. Was the last son. That was why they started, Umoja now started managing that IBUSA as a propitiating agent, which they are doing on behalf of Ezuku quarters. So that is why, in historical analysis, in historical accounts, you don't just tell your tell stories as a straitjacket account. No, you ask questions. So the question, why is it that it is the youngest of the youngest or the youngest that is propitiating an IBUSO, which ordinarily should be the duty of the eldest of the Opala in any kindred, in any quarter? Well, that's the question. But I'm not supplying the reasons for that. Now, we're not going to 7. It was based on that. After that one, they stopped them, but there was still hunger. Now, number 7, it was on the issue of the second solution to stop hunger that Owana went to Okpanam and prepared, in conjunction with Okpana people, and prepared the yam medicine, Obuj, and gave IBUSO, so that they will get yam, their harvest will come back, farming will now go, as what we call will now disappear. So they did it. And in line with Igbo tradition, Igbo customs and tradition, anybody who prepares yam medicine for you must first taste the first harvest of that yam. So when the first harvest of that yam came up, which signified New Yam Festival, or the taste of New Yam first yam signifies New Yam Festival. You go to farm in what we call, that is the Iwaji is normally celebrated on a Eke day. Then there's what we call Ji Nkwaja. Ji Nkwaja. The Nkwo before the Eke, because ordinarily in IBUSO, Eke day is a work-free day. You don't go to farms on Eke day, except for EOG. EOG, you don't go to work on Nkwo day. You're going to EOG farm on Nkwo day. But generally, Eke day is resting period for the whole farm, farm works in IBUSO. That's where people worship their Ani when we hold our meetings. Is IBUSO, is Ogbe, is Umunna, and so on and so forth, when we settle our matters. So that day before the Iwaji is called that. The Nkwo before the Eke Iwaji is called Jinkwaja, when people will now go to farms and bring out the first fruits of the harvest, of the yam harvest. Normally Ekpe, because that's a yam variety that matures faster. Before you now have Asokolo, and then Asokolo, and then you have Alafolo, then you have Oku, Oli, and other ones will now come. Then water yam. Yes. So we take time to mature. So that is actually so when the first harvest came, Okpana had to eat it in the morning. By eating it in the morning, that was when they now celebrated their New Year festival. After eating it, and no problem with them, now Owana decided to taste the yam by 12 noon in the afternoon, and no problem. And after that, IBUSO people will now gather. IBUSO now gathered and taste the same yam in the evening from 4. And that is why it became a tradition that Okpana and IBUSO celebrate New Yam feast the same day. Okpana celebrates in the morning. Umu Wida brought the yam medicine, celebrates in the afternoon between 12, and then the entire IBUSO celebrates their New Year festival from 4 p.m. That is a tradition, and that is why Umuwa people excluded from taking Odogu title. So we can see from it, that is just 7. Let us even, we can now see from that everything has historical linkages. It's not about, history is not about storytelling. If you go to university, there are disciplines that specifically deal with storytelling. You go to language department, English language, French language, linguistics, they will tell you about storytelling. You go to folklore, yes, it's storytelling. Maybe they can tell you about writing prose. or what we call fiction. That's storytelling. The history is a science in its right. And that's what I'm going to prove to people here. When you lie in history without collaborative facts or collaborative evidence, it remains a forgery or mere story in your imagination. But in this case, I'm providing point by point the reason why certain actions, why certain aspects of Ibuzo history came to be what they are today, and why Isabo's assertion through that white paper that Omeze is elder to Ibuzo, senior to Ibuzo, is false and unfounded and a clear fabrication that translates into forgery. So let's go to number 8. Ishita, the progenitor of Ezuku quarters, first settled, was the first to settle in Ibuzo, no doubt about it, and settled along with Okwe people. He settled with, along with Abo people, Ihum people, settled with Ikelike people, also settled with Ezanyang, Ezuboma of Asaba. These were the original people who settled there before that people started coming. Before Umeje even came up, Ishite's grandfather and great-grandfather have settled there. But with that, because of that, because at that period of the populations were not too much, they still had their direct link. Their direct link with the villages, with their source, east, where they came from. Ishite actually migrated, Ishite's father's parents actually migrated from the present Newi, Uruagu Newi, Isu village, Uruagu Newi, which is Isu village, which is just a small village in Uruagu Newi, is the oldest and autonomous village in the present Newi. All others, Umudimu Newi, other parts of Uruagu, most of whom came from Isuoba, Uruagoba, most of them that migrated from Uruagoba. They are talking about other Umudim, you are talking of Neichi, then Otolo. All these ones are immigrants. Our people were already, the original founders, descendants of the original founders of Ibuzo were already settled. And that is why Newi tradition still maintains that Isu village is Okpala Newi. Okpala, it does not mean the first son of Newi. It means the Okpala, the head of Newi. That is the tradition. And if Orizu family today is a Newi, it's because that Isu people granted and the authority to be Eze Newi, not on the fact that they have the right. Because Otolo people were actually the last people to migrate and settle in that Newi land. And that was also established why today Newi sees rabbit as a totem. Why rabbit is a totem in Ibuzo, which was created by Ezuku people. We'll come to that in another point. So the point is this. I'm not just saying that Ezuku has settled there with these people. And it was Ezuku that told the Ikerike people to move further westward to counter Obolo people who were coming through Obolono and through Oboloku. And Ikerike stayed there. Where Ikerike left, Ikerike and Ihum people were living along Ibuzo Olod Road. And where Ikerike people first settled along there is still known today as Akwi Ikerike, part of Omeze farmland. Ihum people also settled there. Ihum people, some of them are in Ibuzo, they are mainly in Ezuku quarters and Umueka quarters. They are also from Abomili, Abo Kingdom. Some of them also migrate to the present Okwashuku, where have Abo Wash and so on and so forth. Ukwe people are still part of Ezuku quarters today. Some of them now moved and far, and I found what is known as Umokwe village. We combine with Abo Wash to form Umokwe. So we were there before the coming of, before the coming of Umeje, when after he killed his descendant, his opponent during annual wrestling contest, Umeje came as a teenager. And our father, Ishite, went and brought him when he was informed that he was banished. He came and brought him as a boy. So we cannot say that somebody who came as a kid is now elder to the man who brought him. Now we are going to further sustain this fact in the following points. Now, as we said it earlier, let's go to 9. Number 9, under IBUSA customs and tradition, when we are sharing rights, when it comes to sharing rights, food, meat, sharing land, or whatever, the elder takes first. The other takes first, others follow. But when it comes to job, manual labor, it's the reverse. The reverse is the case. I'm talking about IBUSA customs and tradition. If people don't know, when it comes to sharing portions for work in the farms, manual labor, it is the eldest shares a portion and the youngest selects. That's IBUSA tradition. So if, for example, the whole IBUSA today are going for general duty or job, or whatever, if they get a portion, Otodogu will share the portion. Otu Yase will choose, Otu Wolo will choose, and Otu Odogu will take last. That's the IBUSA tradition. And when it comes to Otu Odogu, Ezuku will share, and Umeze will take first, in spite of their size in population. Ezuku will share, Umeze will take. Then Ezuku will take last. That is a right of seniority. This is tradition. Now, let's go to 10. There's one ceremony that unites the whole IBUSA today, Ifejoko, which proceeds into Iwaji ceremony. This is another ceremony that unites the whole IBUSA. Ifejoko, what we call Eka Ifejoko, announcing or marking the date of the celebration of Ifejoko. We call it Eka Ifejoko. It normally takes place before on the first Afo of every August. First Afo day of every August. The entire IBUSA elders will gather at Senior Diokpa's place, Diokpa IBUSA's place, and they do what we call Eka Ifejoko, with Ogolo wine, Raffia and wine, and other things. You know why they're talking about Ogolo? Because people don't know Ogolo has to do with harvest, production. So that is why they normally take it. From that moment, they will now select people who will now go to Ezuku quarters and meet the Diokpa of Ezuku, who is the custodian of Ifejokoha, who will go there to enable him perform what is called Ilo Ifejokoha, propitiation of Ifejokoha, performing the collective Ifejoko of the whole IBUSA. This is normally done penultimate the next whole year. So if that is done in AK, or let's say 5 days to Ifejoko Ndeza. So on that, and that AK is when the whole IBUSA, what we call Iluezi, the whole IBUSA people will now start clearing their portions in preparation for the celebration, Iluezi, and so on and so forth. And from that moment, they also start, the people will now start sweeping the compounds and the streets and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. The youth now start what we call sweeping. Sweepers will now start sweeping. In those days, if you don't come out early in the morning, they will find you, or they will pick one fowl there, seize it, and your parents will ransom the fowl, or pay for it. That used to be the kind of discipline we experience as kids growing up in traditional IBUSA society, which are fast disappearing now. So Ezuku people are in custody of Ifejokoha. The Diokpa of IBUSA, through the help of IBUSA community, will bring the money. Money will come with money, goat, one live goat, one live he-goat, and then some money, cola nut, and raffia palm wine, and they bring it to Diokpa of Ezuku quarters, who will now perform Ifejoko or for the entire IBUSA. Without the Ifejoko, without Ezuku quarter, Tiokpa performing it, the Ifejoko cannot commence. That signifies that the Ifejoko has commenced. After that, 5 days later, being the Oli after the AK Oli, the next Oli after the one there, the Indians will perform their own Ifejoko. Ifejoko Ndeze. The following day, which is Ukodo Day, is a wrestling contest. It continues on, they conclude with Mbankbose. Then after Mbankbose, after the next 4 days, the next AK now becomes New Year Festival. Iwaji. When days they will now bring out their giant gong ushe, their giant wooden gong ushe. They bring it down, and that ushe will be down until the next 21 days towards mid-October, when it will now be taken up. And throughout that period, there will be no burial ceremony in Ibuzo. Anybody who dies is either hidden by being buried with a ceremony or put in mortuary. And that is why after October every year, you see a lot of burial ceremonies taking place in Ibuzo. Because between August, let me say between second week of August to second or third week of October, no burial ceremonies are allowed in Ibuzo. So the custodian of the Ifejoko are his quarters as areas. The Okpa of Ibuzo, wherever I say, we come and pay homage to his quarters and ask the Okpa to do it on behalf of Ibuzo people. That as the ancestral head, that as the Okpa Laisi of Ibuzo, he does it on Ibuzo. We are not coming to that. 11. Let's even look at what is called Imemo. Imemo ceremony in Ibuzo is done every 20 years. That is during the period people out of financial constraints could not take the normal Alo title, what we call Ofede, that you have the money, you pay everything down, like the way people like us do. When you do that, you automatically become a full Alo title holder. Like in my village, you automatically become member of Ndichie, class of Ndichie. So you can now share from the produce of future entrance, and also you can also share from other benefits according to Alo title members. But those who don't have money to perform the Ofede we are talking about, we now wait for that Imemo after 20 years. We call it Alo Igulube, Alo Mamado, or Alo Mpalo. The way we call it Alo Mamado then is because slaves and people from outside were not permitted to take it before. To take it before then, when slavery was invoked. So it's Alo Wampi. It's called Alo Wampi because you need only one goat, one he-goat, to initiate into Alo with little drinks and small money. 2, it is called Alo Igulbe because you move out in groups and dance to the market to identify, to now present yourself to the people that you are not an Alo title holder. So it's done every 20 years. But you cannot, the only advantage of people who took the Alo Igulbe is that when there's such a person, they are accorded full rights, full burial rights as an Alo title holder. But that person will not partake in the benefits of Alo title holders, like being a member of Indicia, what we call Ebanokwa, or sharing from the process of new entrance. You not be part of it until the next 20 years, when new initiates of the same Igulbe will now come in. Then the old ones will now graduate into the Okwa level. They now become full Ndichie after 20 years, while the cycle continues. Now that offer Imemo of Ibuzo that gives the right to undertake that Alo is in the custody of Ibuzo, Ezuku people. That offer, that Igulbe is taken according to seniority in Ibuzo. After Otodogu, it moves to Otuwolo. After Otuwolo, it moves to Tuyese. So by the time it moves around and comes to Otodogu, it's already 20 years. Because when it comes to Otodogu, Ezuku will do it, we perform who are the custodians of the offer, will, because when it goes to ESA, we now return the offer to the Okpo of Ezuku. The Okpo of Ezuku, we now order the restart of the process. But Ezuku people will perform it. Ezuku will perform it for 2 years. After performing it for 2 years, it's now moved to Omeze. So after Omeze have performed it for 2 years, they will now hand it over to Otuwolo. Then Otuwolo will now perform village by village until it goes to 2 years. So that is another mark of seniority. Ezuku is the custodian of Ofo Imemo, not Omeze. At the head of IBUSA, at the head of Otodogu. Let us even look at the other other ones. That's 11. Let's go to number 12. Ezuku Quarters is custodian of the two most senior titles, warrior titles in Ibuzo. The Ikwele of Ibuzo, which is hereditary in one kindred. Idumi Ikwele is hereditary there, is the most senior title. It is Ikwele that confers Odogu, Uwolo, and ESA their titles. ESA, Odogu, ESA do not pay homage to the Diokpo of Ibuzo. They pay homage to the Ikwele of Ibuzo. Other Diokpo pay homage to the Diokpo of Ibuzo. That is his tradition. The Odogu is the next, is the Generalissimo, the Grand Force General Commander of Ibuzo Traditional Forces. It's originated from Ezuku. And as I said earlier, the first Odogu of Ibuzo was Odogu Okube, my great-great-grandfather, maternal grandfather, from our Bo Kingdom. So, from Ezuku Quarters. So, it was originally, Odogu was also originally part of Ezuku Quarters. Part of Ezuku. Before Omeze now pleaded, let us share it with you. Since you cannot have two titles, you said, okay, but Ikwele is sacrosanct. Because not even every part of Ezuku that shares from Ikwele title is hereditary in one family. My own mother's direct family. So, yeah, and that is also the Ubuzor's children on Wamboshi's mother's direct family. Because children on Wamboshi, Obi children on Wamboshi, and my mother are second cousins. So that is just is hereditary, but we're not talking about relation, we're talking about facts. So it's not about relationship or whatever in this, we're talking about facts. So it is there in Ezuku Quarters. And let me remind some people, one thing they don't know about this issue. When Ezuku people granted Omeze people the right to share the Odogu title with them, they seized the opportunity, especially Umuochia people, seized the opportunity to now they came and took the Kengoha and said they should also partake in sharing the Odogu, the Ikwele of Ibuzo with Ezuku people. And Umuochia people took it because Ezuku had given them the privilege of propitiating an Ibuzo. Ezuku people had also given Omeze people the privilege of sharing Odogu title with them. They also now want to share Ikwele title with Ezuku because they felt that because Ezuku is small in size, they are powerless. But we'll come to that later. But the point is that when they took the Kenga, they started dying. The original place is what we know behind Ashanta today, Ashanta Market, opposite in Kata. Behind it is where that's the original home of Umuochia people. It was because they took the Kenga that they started dying. It was when they started and they now fled that area, leaving only a few people. They now moved to their present location. Ezuku gave them the portion to leave when they returned the Kenga, when they started dying. Ezuku told them there's nothing they can do. Because the Kenga said, nobody, that land, that place will never grow in population. It will be better for you people to leave that place. So they fled. Ezuku gave them where they're staying today, the present Umuochia. And they decided to join Umuedem, which is the senior village to, the senior village to among Alamozo. The other one is Kanya. And they joined them and they become Edem Noche for some time until in the 1980s or 1990s, if I'm really between 1980s and 1990s, they revolted against Umuedem and said they want to be their own. And then they became, instead of Edem Noche, I have six villages in Umeze quarters. Now you now have what we call, Umochie. No longer Edem Noche, but Umuedem Umochie as a separate independent village in Umeze. So that was how it came about. And that is why Idumukete is known as Idumukete. Idumukete is a nickname because Ukete is dwarf palm tree. It's a dwarf palm tree that produces even fruits like the ones that are grown up. So it is a dwarf palm tree. So Idumukete means a kindred, a dwarf kindred, a dwarf palm kindred. That's a literal meaning of that Idumukete. That is what, but that's just a reason. I'm not trying to collaborate part of my narratives with that event that led to Umuche migrating from Idumukete to their present abroad.